Namaste and good evening to all. A warm welcome to Utsahin Tea Anniversary. I'm really glad to share that Team Utsahin has organized several special events on this special occasion. And today, it is a talk show, right from the heart, on leadership and team building. I would like to quote here, coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success by Henry Ford. We have our guest speaker, Sri Ravi Bommakanti sir, founder BBITS Consulting. Welcome you, sir. He is with us today. And I request Yashwant sir to introduce our guest speaker for the event. Over to you, Yashwant sir.
Yashwant, are you there? Yashwant, we don't hear you. Please unmute your audio and video. All right, seems Yash is seemingly having a technical snag or a problem right here. Instead, what we will do is we will straight get into the talk show itself. Once again, a hearty welcome to you, Sri Ravi ji. Namaste. I'm Anirban, your host. We'll straight get into the topic for today. We have a wonderful topic in front of us, which is leadership and team building. In fact, both of these go hand in hand, and it is really very prime as a topic today, both in corporate circles as well as in every aspect of human life. But that intrigues me to ask you the first question, which is why leadership and why today? Over to you, sir. May I request Raviji to please unmute your microphone?
Yeah, can you hear me, Anirban?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. First of all, congratulations to the Utsahin team on your anniversary. I think the entire team has put in lots of efforts to spread inspiring messages to people in all walks of life. So congratulations on your first anniversary and wish you all the best. Coming to the topic about why leadership and team building, there are basically two reasons. One is, in the past few years, I've been working with a lot of startups, entrepreneurs, as well as corporate leaders. And a number of them have always been asking me this question on, how can I improve as a leader? What is it that I need to do as a leader, and so on. So in all my interactions with these entrepreneurs and leaders, that is the most pressing question that they have been asking about how to grow as leaders, how to develop their own team, how to develop themselves, and how to build and grow their business or organization. So that has been the number one question that everyone has been asking. In fact, it is so serious and such a pressing question in their minds that most of my mentees that I mentor, in fact, they pay, apart from the organization funding, the mentoring fee, they themselves pay something out of their pocket. It shows, that they have a deep desire to learn about leadership. So that is one reason why, I thought leadership and team building would be a good topic to talk about. The second reason is, over my experience and a number of my fellow leaders, in organizations that I work with, we have realized that basically in any organization or institution, there are 4 or 5 major stakeholders. One is you have investors, you have who put in capital. Then you have, ultimate recipients of the product or service or whatever in the form of customers or beneficiaries. Then you have government or society, which provides resources and also provides some regulatory assistance and so on. But the most important ingredient, apart from the investors who put capital, the government or society that gives resources, and ultimately the customers or beneficiaries who receive the products or services, the most important ingredient that adds energy and actually creates value or delivers something that is really appreciated by the customers or beneficiaries, it is the people. Many organizations, they call them associates, some call them employees or workers or whatever. It is actually the people who provide that energy, and the real value add comes from the people. It's not from the investors and obviously not from the customers or from the government or society, but it's actually the people that make a lot of difference. They are the people who really add value. And you have to have a way of channelizing all that energy into relevant causes, relevant purposes, and to make sure that the organization or institution is doing what it sets out to do. So to channelize this energy, you need leadership. So that's why I feel that the people are the most important ingredient in any organization or institution. They are the people who build value, and to channelize their energy and provide a direction to them, they need leadership. So that's why I chose this topic.
That was really very wonderful to learn from you, sir, that not only have you chosen this topic because it focuses around people, which is all leadership is about, but personally you have, by what you just stated, been a leader. Because a leader is one who knows the way, who goes the way, and then shows the way. You've gone there and you've shown others who aspiringly come to you, and then they want to grow into leaders, and you've had the opportunity to wonderfully mentor them. But that would also bring me to the question, definitely you had this spark of leadership in you, possibly from quite early childhood, because it's said that leaders are not just born, but they're also made. And towards this, I'm sure that right from early childhood, you would have had some form of exposure to leadership. So can you tell us a little more about your background, your family background, your childhood, and how you were driven into leadership?
Yeah, I came from a typical middle-class family, work hard, study hard. My father actually came from an extremely poor background. So, in his early days, he lost his father and most of his siblings, and he had to take the responsibility for his entire family and a younger brother, sister, and mother. And he had to face, extreme poverty. In fact, he had to live on the kindness of other people, for his food and for his education. So to overcome that poverty, he worked very hard and he became, a chartered accountant. And he educated himself and ensured that, his children also get the right type of education. And apart from becoming a chartered accountant, he further rose, because of hard work and because of his vision, he rose to the highest rank in the finance division in a public sector unit. So that was basically a very inspiring story for me, my father himself doing that. Apart from that, my mother also provided a very conducive environment for the entire family. She, in the 20s and 30s, we did not have much of, English-based education, but she educated herself. She was very well versed in English. She could speak English very well, a very confident lady. So she also emphasized, the need for education. So we had, our parents themselves, being role models and people that you look up to and people who emphasized on the need for education. I also had two uncles, who were actually very senior IAS leaders, and they rose to very high levels, both at the state level as well as at the national level. So that was an inspiring, example as well. And because of my parents' emphasis on education, they were so particular that everyone has to get the best education. I am the youngest among six, and both my sisters, they were rank holders and medal holders. So that was inspiring. My brothers were also, rank holders, and they were also national scholarship holders and state scholarship holders. That was inspiring. So while all this was inspiring, by myself, I was not a scholarship holder or anything. I was a very average student. In the school days, I had my usual share of confusion, both from an academic point of view as well as social point of view. Obviously, in your young days, you need a sense of direction and you tend to be a bit confused. So while the entire environment around me was quite inspiring, there was an emphasis on education, on career and leadership. It actually took me, quite some time to learn about leadership and get inspired. But that took me quite some time. The early childhood was merely an inspiring environment, but I learned more about leadership later on after becoming a chartered accountant.
Really heartening to know that you had a family of all stalwarts, and your brothers, your sisters, they were all scholarship holders. They kind of motivated and inspired you in early childhood. That also brings me to the next question then. Right from early childhood, you would have been brought up on certain values, and these values, I think, they build us into who we have to be. So what are the values that you as a leader hold sacrosanct and that you would recommend other leaders as well to emulate?
So one of the things that I found, and in one of my very first organizations, I found that I learned from a leader who subsequently became the CEO for one of the companies, that you have to have a sincere interest in people. So you have to have a sincere interest in people, ensure that you are doing the best for them in terms of their own career development. So unless you have a sincere relationship in people, you will not be able to attract good people around you, the best and brightest around you, in your leadership journey. So I found that the most important value is to be extremely sincere and show a sincere interest in people and their career development. And I found that this holds you in good stead throughout, because later there are a lot of people who said they wanted to work with me, and even if I change roles, people would want to come and work along with me because they felt and they experienced that I had a sincere desire in their own career development. So I think one of the most important values is to have a sincere desire in people's development and in making sure that the leaders develop. And you have to be fair, you have to be fair and make sure that you give them all the opportunities. At the same time, provide fair feedback as well. So I think that is one of the most important values that I came across as a leader, to be very sincere when you're talking about people and to be sincerely interested in the development of their people and their careers.
So I think that's a very wonderful value to hold as a leader. And I think that's why they say truly great leaders are people who are all about people. They are a people person, they have empathy, they understand their team, and they don't lead their team by instructions, but they lead their team by understanding their emotions, by understanding where they want to be. But the great leaders are people who take them and enable them into where they ought to be. In fact, often the great leader is also someone who pushes them from behind without even taking the limelight. In fact, at the end of it, the great leader makes the team feel, wow, I did it. I think that's where, again, your focus on the people value as the most sacrosanct value as a leader. That's really awesome and very laudable. My next question will be more about the leadership theme itself. So is leadership, according to you, a natural trait and a natural behavior, or is it something that is inculcated and developed and needs work?
See, in my own experience, and I can share from the experiences that fellow leaders around me have also shared. It is not that you draw a line at a point of time and say at this point of time I've become a leader. It's a continuous journey, and you have to be learning and then putting in a lot of effort to improve your leadership skills. All the time. It's a continue. Even today, I'm learning a lot about leadership, and it's the same for fellow leaders around me. So I don't think it's something like a natural talent or anything. And see, one of the firm beliefs that I have is that everyone has to discover their own potential, and at various points of time, based on the opportunities that are given, there's an opportunity for them to explore and understand and tap into their potential, but provided they put in enough skill effort to build their skills and talents. So there has to be even though there's an opportunity and there's an opportunity for them to tap their potential, they have to put in significant effort. And leadership can be taught and can be learned. In fact, there are several frameworks. In one of the organizations that I worked, I spent almost 14 years in Satyam. It was virtually a leadership factory. There were several frameworks that were used, and believe it or not, there were about 2,000 people, who were treated as leaders. And there are leadership frameworks that could be used for your own time management. There were leadership frameworks that could be used to even if you're an individual, to think around your work as a leader. So there are several frameworks that you can learn. But ultimately, see, all of these frameworks, are basically a skill. They are more like tools, and they definitely help you. So they give you a leg up, and then speed up your journey to becoming a good leader. But I've learned that even if you use all these techniques and frameworks, ultimately, you have to imbibe and internalize and understand what leadership is about. And what I have discovered is, many of the leaders' journey, when you see, you'll find that it is all about 3 or 4 key elements or building blocks, for leadership. And the first thing that I found is, a leader is a person who has a distinct point of view. So it is important to have your own point of view. Now, the point of view could be developed from either your experience, the insights that you have gained, or some intuitive capability that you have, or something that you have seen where you feel that by doing this something could be better. Now, I won't say it's a vision, because a vision means that when people imagine grand things, you don't need to have grand things or a grand vision. But what you need is you need a point of view, and hopefully that point of view comes from your own experience that others are not able to see. So if your point of view comes from your own experience or insights or perception that others are not able to see, naturally, you'll start attracting people towards you. And, apart from they having the view, you also have to make sure that you gather and attract, a lot of talented people around you. And it's important to build, this, because this is the crucial building block for any leader. If you have an idea, it is just an idea. And it is good that if you have an idea with insights and perception, but to enable it, you need a lot of people around you. Now, when you have the idea, there are basically two types of leadership or two types of paths that you have. So if you have an idea as an individual contributor, you can take it forward. So this is my idea, and this is my intuitive experience where things could be better. For example, in one of the companies in Australia, I developed a business analysis method, which was based on some experiences and insights that I had in the past. And so I showed that business analysis method can be done differently on a project. So once I had done that, it was a different idea, a unique idea. But then, there are two paths ahead of me. Either I could have pursued that and become an individual contributor. Even then, you're a leader. See, even if you're doing things by yourself, as long as you have an idea or something that you can show as different, you can be treated as a leader and you can take it forward. And you can be an individual leader. You can do in-depth work on it, do further research, develop it, add more elements to it. And, you can go on for the next 25 years as an individual leader. But then sometimes, the idea or the point of view that you have requires a lot of work. It may require an organization, a lot of people. That is where the team building and the leadership capability, to build an organization comes into play. So either you go with the individual contributor path, with your idea, or take your idea, build a team around you, build an organization, and then implement it. So that then becomes the second path that you're following. Okay, you have to build a team around you. And once you build a team around you, generally I found that if you have very bright people around you, very smart people, then really organization structure doesn't really matter. People will organize themselves, and the bright people, will find ways of doing the work. But sometimes you have to create an organization. And that is where, I keep saying that you have to find ways to channelize the energies of the people in the right direction, make sure that, they are not falling over each other, and the energies, are not misused or, wasted in internal activities. So that is where the organization comes into play. So you need to have your own point of view. You need to, if you decide to go ahead with an organization and team building exercise, you need to bring about and attract the best people around you. Make sure that you have the right organization. And then when you select the people, there are a couple of experiences I can share. One of the things is, you always have to match the person from his strengths point of view. You ignore the weaknesses. So there was from my own example, I can share, once I created in a business unit, that where I had the freedom to innovate, I created a different type of organization structure. Now, it took me 4 months, to get it running, but all the time, I was not able to find the right leader. After that, I found the right leader, and his strengths matched the role. So he had a lot of weaknesses. For example, he may not have been very good at, customer communication. Now, that might be a weakness in that particular situation, but he had a different type of strength. And that is, given a target, given, an objective, given a goal, he will go about it relentlessly. He will build a team and then achieve it. So that was his strength. So when you're building people, you have to build people based on their strengths and ignore their weaknesses. And you also have to, over a period of time, make sure that, these people become so strong that they're able to replace you. See, one of the things that I find is, when you're building a leadership team, there is often, insecurity in people thinking that, if all these leaders become smart and if they become strong, then what happens to my role? See, as long as you're thinking about your contribution to the organization, you can always find different ways to contribute to the organization. So even if you move out of your current leadership role and someone brighter and smarter and, more energetic than you takes over, it really does not matter. So, you have to build the best and brightest around you. Make sure that you're able to leverage on their strengths. Don't feel insecure. And if you have the best and brightest, all you have to do is get out of their way.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry. I had a quick power cut here, so I'm really sorry. However, I've joined back. I just wanted to get into the aspects that Raviji was just mentioning. One is you beautifully, from your inspirational personal story, you brought up about how you chose the right leader in the right moment. That was a wonderful thing that you did, and you also spoke about the importance of finding the strengths of your people and choosing the right kind of a person. Sometimes your people may have weaknesses, but you need to overlook them and place your trust on the strengths that you need in the moment. I'm sure that oftentimes you would have had situations where problems would have come up. You might have had situations where some of the decisions might have been tough and challenging. So what were some of your most tough and challenging situations as a leader, and how did you face them? If you can please elaborate on that dimension.
Yeah, I mean, one of the situations that I found is, in India, giving feedback to people is not very easy, because we are kind-hearted people by nature. And so we really don't know how to say no. We really don't know how to give frank feedback. We always try to say nice things about other people. So, I mean, I always wanted to maintain a professional environment where, there is no bias. It doesn't matter whether a particular person is from a particular language or a community or whatever. You need to have a professional environment around you. So giving feedback is one of the toughest things, for a leader, because there's a tendency to soft pedal issues and say nice things. But if you're sincerely interested in the development of the people, if you're sincerely interested in the development of your leaders so that they grow, you have to give honest and frank feedback. Now that is one of the toughest things, for a leader. So there are several ways in which you can go about doing it. First thing is, you have to get rid of all this, 6-month performance appraisal, 1-year performance appraisal, and that never works. If you have constant interactions, if you're working with your leaders, continuously, you should be in a position to give frank and honest feedback immediately. So you don't have to wait till a 6-month performance appraisal cycle or an annual cycle. Feedback is immediate. And over a period of time, I gradually developed some ways in which me and my leaders, we would agree on some things, in a one-page document, and we would review it frequently. We would meet and then we would talk about it. And so there is feedback happening on the performance, on the behavior immediately, and definitely, not beyond a month. So that way, the annual appraisal was just a formality. So you have to find ways in which you can give frank feedback. So obviously, you need to be making sure that you're concentrating on the strengths. But for a leader, you need to have what I would say, skills in multiple areas. You need to be good in, for example, operational aspects. You need to be good in service delivery. You need to be good in customer-facing activities. You need to. So there are a number of activities. If you're looking at it from a business point of view, there are a number of things in a business or an enterprise. So the leader needs to have skills in all of them. So sometimes, they may have skills in one area and not another. So in that case, you provide frank feedback and hopefully provide an opportunity for him to be rotated to the other role, get some experience in that other role and build up his skills so that he becomes an overall leader. So giving feedback is one of the toughest situations.
Surely, giving feedback is a tough thing, and there are quite a lot of frameworks for giving feedback. I definitely do remember, Raviji, when I used to work with you, in G, we used to have those multiple, not, like you just mentioned, it was not only the annual appraisals. We used to get feedback from time to time. We used to have our 30, 60, 90 reviews. We used to have feedback given once every quarter to every individual. I think all of them matter a lot. The way you give your feedback, so that it enables and challenges people to perform better, and not to take feedback to to their heart, but rather to act upon it and then make themselves as better individuals. That would also bring me to yet another thought process around yourself personally. What do you see as your best strengths, and how, in your experience, what did you find to be the most exciting aspect of your leadership life? What excited you the most? What are your strengths, if you can speak about them?
Well, more than me, I think my peers and colleagues have to tell about what my strengths are. And for example, if you look at my LinkedIn profile, a number of people would say strategy, thinking, etc. So I think that's obviously has been one area where I focused a lot, and I think I've done reasonably well in that. I've always been thinking ahead, thinking of new ways of doing things, thinking of new ways in which we can meet the customer requirements or the stakeholder requirements. So thinking ahead, and not only thinking ahead, but also thinking from multiple perspectives. For example, thinking from a deep operational point of view, thinking from what I would call as a helicopter perspective, from way ahead, way above. So these are all the things, that have developed. But apart from thinking and, developing what I would call as, the distinctive points of view, what is important is, you should be able to translate your distinctive point of view into tangible results. So there is a whole process in it. You have to build a team of people. Hopefully, they're extremely good people. And secondly, you have to have organizing structures that channelize the energy. And more importantly, you need to have constant feedback and making sure that things are going as planned. So you have to be literally, hands-on, and you should be conversant with what is happening, with all the leaders, with all the work, so that you're able to follow up and ensure that things are done. So making sure that ideas are translated into reality and into practical results is an extremely critical activity. And to me, that gives a lot of creative satisfaction. When there are several times when I created new organization structures, things that were not existing in the organization before, I created new organization structures. I found people and I groomed them, I rotated them, and then developed their leadership skills. So that gave me a lot of creative satisfaction. So the moment you see one of your ideas being implemented, it gives a lot of creative satisfaction. So I would see, basically what others saw in me is not only able to think, but able to translate, your thought into practical results. And I think that translation into practical results has been, one of the things that I've been doing throughout as a leader.
When it comes to translating things into a practical set of results, I think, when you deal with people as a leader, especially a lot of your work will be with dealing with people. They are a set of aspirations, they are a set of capabilities and skills, they are a set of, their own limitations, they are a set of dreams that they carry, there is a bag of emotions. So you need to deal with people collectively. And this, you just mentioned that one of your good strengths is thinking ahead, thinking, and having a look at the bigger picture, and then multi-perspective thinking. So how did you get your people along so that you could translate them into tangible results? Excuse me. So in this terms, what were some of your strategies of identifying the right people, looking at people in multiple perspectives, not just as a resource or just as a skill set, but as a holistic individual? And how did you motivate your people to move along together?
Well, there are a couple of things here. See, whenever I recruited people or I wanted to, identify people for a particular role, there are a few things that I would look at. There is always a personal energy that a person carries that is plainly visible. You also have to look at the past record to see, whether he has actually delivered tangible and practical results. That's important. But there is one important trait that I would always look for, and that is courage and the ability to make tough decisions. See, as leaders, you have to make sometimes extremely tough decisions, and there are trade-offs that you have to make. So it's extremely important to find people who not only have the energy, have a record of actually delivering results, but who also have the capability to make those tough decisions. So broadly, these were the things that I was looking at, and it takes time. If you have an idea, you have to attract people to that idea. And it takes time. So I used to spend a lot of time in convincing people, showing them different perspectives, building the right team, and making sure that the leaders get the right opportunities in different aspects of work. And more importantly, I think one of the things that I have learned as a leader is you need to empower people. You need to empower people, give them a sense of freedom, give them a sense of feeling that they are owning things. So basically, the style of leadership that I had was what I would call as it is both tight and loose. Loose in the sense, the leaders were empowered and they could make their own decisions. They could set, their own targets. They could set their own goals. They could hire and fire, whatever they wanted to do. And then, at the beginning of the year or at frequent intervals, we would agree on a broad set of things that we would achieve together. So that would be the thing, which enables me to make sure that, we are managing tight. It's not that just because you're empowered, you go and do whatever you want, but, you're empowered, but then you're working towards, something that is common. So that helped in, having this common shared vision of where you need to go, having this sort of an empowerment, enable the leaders to feel, free. And, everyone likes freedom. No one wants, someone to be, standing behind him and then giving him instructions or micromanaging. That is something no one likes. I personally don't like it. And I'm sure, most leaders don't like it. So I always believed in giving the freedom. And I think, the moment you have a differentiated point of view and basically based on, something that you're able to see and you're able to explain convincingly to them, then you can attract the right set of leaders. And if you provide the right environment and you know how to manage tight and loose at the same time, tight in the sense, not in a constrained way, but in a way in which both of you are going in the same direction, not in multiple different ways. Loose in the sense, every leader has that sense of freedom and empowerment, and he feels that he is actually achieving things on his own. So when he feels that he has achieved it, you have to give him all the credit. You just need to step back and say he is the one who has done it. So that's basically the style. So that is so basically some of the things that I have done to make sure that we are able to build a strong set of leaders, give them a feeling of empowerment, make them feel that they are owning their own outcomes, they are owning their own whatever destiny that they have they are going to achieve as leaders. So that is the style that I adopted, and that worked quite well because the evidence is there are a number of people who always said that Ravi, if you are moving out, we would like to come and work with you because we understand that you give us a lot of empowerment. We understand that you give us a lot of freedom, and they themselves feel like leaders. So it's very important for people to be seen in other people's eyes as the leader. So whenever if I'm going on a team meeting or if I'm going somewhere else, if I have a set of leaders with me, I would take points to point out that to their team, I would say he is your leader, so that it strengthens that leader's image, and he knows that he has my support and encouragement. So that's basically this is some of the things that I have done as a leader to make sure that we're all working towards the same broad point of view, as well as feeling motivated and energized to create our own outcomes and have a sense of ownership of the outcomes.
Thank you again. I think, again, a few very beautiful points brought out there. Just paraphrasing them here will be first about making the right choices in your people, ensuring that they have the right combination of energy, they have the right combination of skills, and they have the right combination of decision making, sometimes even taking the tough decisions. So as a leader, every one of us, we may often have to choose the inconvenient right than the easy wrong. And that's where I think a great leader usually drives towards tangible results, as Raviji just mentioned. It's never about the role, but it's more about the goal and how you take your people to the goal. So there, Raviji brought out very beautifully that a great leader is someone who empowers and enables people and then gives them the ability to display that same amount of leadership. That would also bring me to the question that maybe in your life too, you had leaders who had influenced you, who you chose as role models. And leadership learning happens in everybody's life. So who were the most influential people in your life, and what are your leadership learnings in life, Raviji?
Well, strangely, the people who influenced me, from leadership point of view early in my career were people that I never met. When I was doing my CA, I wanted to get, the annual reports of companies so that, I could actually do financial analysis, which was taught in my CA on real annual reports of companies and balance sheets. So I used to write to companies and get, and so there, and in the papers also, you would see people like T. Thomas. Now, T. Thomas was the chairman of Hindustan Lever. And he used to give a speech in the annual general meeting, and it used to be covered in a full page article in the newspapers. So I used to cut out those articles and keep. And it is very inspiring. You see, when you see, chairmen of large companies like Hindustan Lever talking about, how they want to transform, how they conduct their business operations, what are the changes they are seeing, how they are going about, developing their team, the emphasis on management that they have, it's really very inspiring. So just like T. Thomas and his speeches, in the early days, in the early 80s, they were inspiring. There is also another gentleman, Huxer, from ITC. So I used to cut out his speeches also, full page speeches, and that was very inspiring. But I think one of the most, I would say, revealing insights about leadership came by reading Peter Drucker's books. Two of these books, Practice of Management and The Effective Executive. I would suggest that everyone should read this Practice of Management and The Effective Executive, because even today, even though they were written long time back, even today, the essence of leadership, the essence of business, what he describes there is relevant even today. There are timeless principles of leadership and business that do not change, and so it applies even today. So there were very insightful ideas that you brought about. In fact, when you read those books, your entire world turns upside down. So whatever of business, turns upside down, because he reveals, insights in such a simple language, and it is so simple to understand. For example, he says, whatever you do inside an organization is all activity and cost. Real results actually happen only outside the organization. It's a very simple thing, but not many people realize it. The other simple thing that he says is, as a leader, you should focus on contribution. Most of the time, we're all thinking about whether I have 100 people with me, 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever. But is managing downward. But if, as a leader, if you're focusing on your contribution, it's a whole dimension, which opens up, and your leadership, your thinking, everything changes. So I think these three were, key influencers in the early part of my leadership journey. But later, in fact, there are several people who inspired. Arvind Thakur from NIT, when I changed from being a chartered accountant to an IT professional, Arvind Thakur, he interviewed me and he gave me a break in IT. He also showed me, how to learn about business analysis and how to get into the world of IT. And there were other inspiring things that I learned from him, including how to make presentations. So in those days, we used to have projectors and slides, transparent slides. So he was a master of projecting, on 2 projectors and 2 screens. So it was an excellent learning, watching all about communication. So he played a very important role, and was an influencer in making me change from a CA world into an IT world. And after you got into the IT world, there was no looking back. There are other people, and I was very fortunate to work with, CEOs and founders. Satyam is an organization where I worked, and I joined them early in '93 when it was still a startup. Srini Raju selected me, and he was very clear about what he was expecting from me. That was very inspirational, and he had a key role in influencing me in terms of giving some direction, and then showing me why it is important to know about customers and so on. So he had a very key role. The founders of Satyam, they had a very key role. They influenced me in the leadership in terms of providing opportunities. In fact, handpicking me for certain roles. And there was a core leadership team. That was very influential, and they always encouraged me. One was Lucy Bridge, who later became CEO for Hexaware. And then there is another gentleman, B.S.N.Murthy, whose talk you'll be hearing immediately after this. He is a person who always encouraged and supported me. So there are several people, mostly founders or members of the core team, who had an influence on me. But apart from that, the joy of working with, leaders, especially in Satyam, I say it's a crucible for innovation and leadership. There are a number of leaders that I have worked with, both people in my team as well as peers, from whom I learned a lot. So they had a great role to influence. But above all, this is from a career point of view. There is one more person, who had a great influence on me, and that is my wife. I'm very lucky that, I married a very smart and understanding woman, and to have her in my life is a great influence. Whatever we did, whatever decisions we took, whether it's about our kids' education, about important career moves, about major decisions in our life, or building a house or whatever, we always did it together. So I'm very fortunate. So these are all the influences in my life, and I'm very lucky to be associated with CEOs and founders, and
Thank you.
Bridge and B.S.N.Murthy.
Thank you for the really elaborate answer on the influential people in your life. I think I'll close the session asking you one last message. What would you want our audiences today, to remember back about leadership and team building? One last message for them.
I think that today there is so much of information around you. There's, because of the internet, everything opens up around you. So I think a lot of people, would be swamped with, so much of information, so many choices to make. I feel that, one of the key things that you have to make, and what I learned, as a leader is, you have to have a way of saying no to many things in your life. You have to focus on only a few things that are worthwhile and that are important to you. And once you focus on that, you have to put in a lot of hard work and perseverance. Nothing worthwhile is easy to get. So you focus only on a few things, get rid of all the noise surrounding around you, get rid of all the things in the internet that you see, focus only on a few things, put in the hard work, and make sure that you persevere. Because in my leadership, I have found that, unless you persevere, you won't get results. Nothing goes right the first time. You have to try the second time, third time to make it successful. So that's extremely important. And one other thing that I observe is, with all this information and with all these things happening around you, you have to realize that ultimately, you're not competing against anyone. See, what I observed is, there are a lot of growth opportunities for everyone, whether it's in an educational environment, whether it's in a commercial enterprise, whether it's in a public sector enterprise, there is a huge growth possibility for everyone. So when there is so much of opportunity for growth, you really don't have to be competing with each other or saying, I need to be better than him, I need to be better than him, her, or whatever. You just need to make sure that you're focused on yourself and try to tap and be the best you can be. So you have to be competing against your own potential, not against X, Y, or anything like that. So I would say, my message would be, with all the stuff that's happening around you, cut off all the noise, focus on only a few priorities, make sure that you put in a lot of hard work and persevere, never give up, and make sure that you're able to prioritize, when you're persevering and you're coming across difficult situations. And you have to make sure that, you persevere. And lastly, I would say that in addition to persevering, make sure that you're only competing against your own potential, not against X, Y, Z or whatever, but against your own potential. Try to be the best you can be. So that would be my message, to whosoever is participating in this Utsahin forum. And there are people from all walks of life. I think this applies to people from all walks of life.
Sure. Thank you. I think that was really a wonderful chat that I had with you. In case audience, any of you have any questions, we have time for one single question from the audience. Let me quickly check. I do not have any questions coming in from the audience. So just for the benefit of audience, while the audience might still be thinking of their questions, for those of you who do not know Raviji, let me also briefly introduce Raviji one more time. He's the founder of BBITS Consulting. He's currently a mentor for multiple business leaders and operates through a couple of his companies. By profession, he's a chartered accountant in qualification, and he's worked in the IT and software industry across various points in time in different positions of leadership roles in companies like Citicorp, in Bankers Trust, in Mahindra, CapGemini, etc. He was the senior vice president with a large global P&L account, where he was responsible for transformational leadership in multiple businesses. He also was the chief operating officer of a business group which had a revenue of more than $1 billion US. He was a thought leader throughout his career. He has conceived and implemented several keystone projects in some of the largest organizational restructurings that have happened in IT industry. He also shared his insights with various people and in sessions that he's delivered at Indian School of Business, Hyderabad, at Administrative Staff College of India, Hyderabad, etc. He was also featured on Forbes India Limited, which is a very prestigious magazine. As the IT representative, he's helped formulate policy for CSR activities of the AP chapter of CII, the Chambers of Commerce. And he's also been the board of directors at a joint venture company with a global conglomerate and an IT company. Apart from all of this, he has expertise ranging across multiple domains and disciplines: strategy, execution excellence, leadership development, mentoring people, and also an angel investor. This apart, apart from India, he's lived in Australia, US, and now based in India. He's an avid golfer. He loves P.G. Woodhouse books. And he's, for those of you who do not know, someone who's a connoisseur at Hindi music, especially he runs a blog called Evergreen Indian Film Music. And for those of you who are looking for it, just go ahead and type that in Google, and you'll find a wonderful blog that will give you some of his deep insights on Bollywood music. With that, I would close this show here and thank you once again, Raviji, for having joined us in such an interactive discussion on both team building and on leadership. True to the title that you chose, you have been a great leader yourself. You've focused around people. You've built people around. Me personally being in your team, and I can vouch for that, saying it was a wonderful time those days when we spent together in the erstwhile Satyam as well as the later Tech Mahindra. I will now hand it over to Prasannaji to take the proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nirban. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was really very, very inspiring, sir, I would say. And the takeaway I would like to share is what I would take away is the basic quality of a leader is to understand people around and attract talented people. So that is one takeaway I have. And the one more thing is we need to have a distinct point of view, which is different from everybody else to become a leader. So truly inspiring, sir. And I have no words after, actually, I am very, very nervous after hearing your full profile, what Anirban sir just shared. So it is a big pleasure, and we are fortunate to hear from you today. Thank you very much, sir, for joining. That was a lot to take away. Wonderful, and we are looking forward to hearing from more and more from you. Please keep joining us, inspire us, and if possible, we will also try to inspire. So get inspire and inspire us. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you everybody for joining with us today. It was a wonderful session, and it personally it is a very learning session for me. Thank you very much, sir. Wonderful. Personally,
Thank
also
you
I
and
would like
all
to
the
thank
best.
you very much. Thank you, sir, and over to you, Sai Charan, for the next proceeding.
Notifying all viewers, the talk show will be recorded, and the YouTube link that is live given will be available and archived. Those of you who missed it, or if your friends missed it, do spread the word and ensure that people maximize on the YouTube link that will be archived. Over to Sai Charan for the next proceeds.